Good morning, everybody. My name is Lloyd McCoy. I manage the Aero ECS Market Intelligence team. Our commercial team consists of myself, Shalvi Nand, and Bryant Brewster, who's somewhere in the audience. We want to take the next 25 or so minutes to talk about what we do, how we combine business intelligence, market trends, and analysis to help our partners and our manufacturers identify end-user prospects, access new white space markets, and shorten their sales cycles. Our deliverables have netted millions of dollars in revenue over the years for our partners and our manufacturers, and we're going to show you just how we go about that. But first, I want to set the stage. Next slide here. Oops, too far back. There we go. But there was an agenda slide. That's okay. I want to set the stage and talk briefly about market trends. I'm going to spend about 10 or so minutes to talk about trends in the areas of security, analytics, IoT, and cloud. So I'll do that. And then me and Shalvi are going to tag team. We're going to talk about some of the value add that we bring to our partners, some of our deliverables, and then we're going to provide some real-life success stories. Sound good? Okay. All right, so we'll start the trends section with a look at analytics, big data and analytics. You can see some of the spending figures and growth figures there. In terms of the end-user spend, we find that large companies, those that have more than 1,000 employees, make up about 2/3 of that overall spend. You can see on the slide there some of the verticals, the major verticals, your banking, your manufacturing, your professional services. Those are the largest. Professional services, by the way, it's a very large and broad category. It includes everything from your systems integrators to your application development firms, consulting companies, et cetera. As you have conversations with your customers and their C-suites, it's important to keep in mind some of the prime drivers that are shaping how they plan investments around big data and analytics solutions, and you can see them on the right there. For one, it helps to know where your customer is on their digital transformation journey, because modernization comes with a greater emphasis on better, faster, and more comprehensive ways of using data, slicing and dicing data, and taking advantage of the insights that come with that. However, that demand is going to vary with your customer's maturity level. So it's important to be in lockstep with where they actually are in their digital transformation journey. Second, cloud. So 70% this year, 70% of big data and analytics solutions are going to go towards on-premise solutions this year. However, within 5 years, about half of all analytics software offerings are going to be sold and deployed in public cloud environments. So, of course, vendors and partners can capitalize on this by making sure that their offerings are able to integrate hybrid and multi-cloud functionality. AI and machine learning. So, obviously, vendors and partners who can bring AI and ML into their big data, into their analytics applications are going to find strong opportunities for net new purchases, upsell, because all the surveys suggest that those features are considered best of breed when it comes to big data and analytics offerings. And then lastly, a major growth area for analytics is in security. So security analytics. We expect a little over $1 billion spent this year on security analytics products, and that's growing at a CAGR of roughly 8% over a 5-year period. And in most of the security surveys I've run across in prepping for this, most of the respondents say that they plan to increase spending on security analytics over the next 12 months. And customers, it makes sense, right? Customers, especially those who are in highly targeted verticals, want to add to their security landscape more flexibility, more scalability, so that they can adapt and transform as the threats that they are protecting against also adapt and transform. Okay, so moving on to IoT, which is, of course, an extension of the analytics conversation. Obviously, a market that's very much in its growth phase right now. You can see some of the spending projections on the slide there. I saw a number of estimates. I'm sure Rebecca Sindel, a couple other folks have better estimates, but I think it's safe to say that we're going to see at least 40 billion IoT devices by 2025. Many of those will be in your industrial, manufacturing verticals, consumer devices, the whole gamut. On the right are some areas where you, the solution provider, can provide guidance and expertise to your customers. One, for your customers, as they transition from pilot projects to scaled deployments, addressing data overload, the data tsunami, is going to be a key challenge, and that can make the difference in terms of whether that IoT project is successfully implemented or unsuccessfully implemented. Also, a multifaceted network connectivity approach needs to be a key consideration for your IoT's infrastructure strategy, because any IoT project is going to span the range from Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and especially 5G over the next few years. Cloud. So a cloud first model is needed, obviously, for deploying and developing an IoT-centric application. However, no one size fits all. The right products that your customer needs for their edge gateway infrastructure, for instance, depends largely on you knowing the kinds of functions that are going to be performed at their core and at their edge. Another thing to keep in mind is that while data flows and controls for compute and storage may often rely on networks that often lack reliable connectivity, and obviously that depends on the location and the nature of the endpoints. So to that end, edge gateways are going to be crucial factors over the coming years in smoothing out those differences in reliability. Governance is important as well. Your customers need help in making their environments compliant from the core to the edge, and help in building dynamic risk management frameworks that allow them to identify and adjust to changing threats. And that means also making sure that your software running on their core, running on their edge, is folded into their corporate-wide governance policies. And then lastly, analytics. So promise of analytics, promise of IoT, analytics is a big part of that, gaining insight from all of these large data sets, allowing companies to be more predictive. Solution providers are going to need to make sure that there's coherence and consistency of analytics at the core with analytics at the edge. All right, so moving on to cloud. You can see some of the growth rates there in the spend projections, about $75 billion this year in North America. We continue to see consolidation, Azure and AWS in North America and EMEA, with some regional cloud players maintaining their niche over the next years. We see the trend continuing towards MSPs, companies that migrate on-prem into the cloud, expect significant continued growth over the next few years with these types of services. 2019 is likely going to be one of the last years where spending on traditional IT infrastructure is higher than cloud IT infrastructure. And in fact, by 2023, non-cloud related IT infrastructure sales are going to be about 40% of the market. So those are some major trends. On the right are areas where our partners and vendors fit. For one, in customer engagements, hybrid cloud will of course be the status quo. And what customers need will be help in managing the complexity of hybrid cloud. And so that ranges from everything from secure data transfers on and off-prem to integrated monitoring and auditing across platforms. Also, there's still going to be demand for traditional infrastructure, and traditional infrastructure to be sold into cloud environments. After all, the cloud is just somebody else's data center. But make sure the technology you're selling into these environments has the ability to work in a multi-tenant cloud environment, and this is especially important, especially critical for your large organizations. Again, while there's always going to be demand for traditional IT, the shift to the cloud is unrelenting, and that's going to sustain an appetite for networking. Networking tools, due to the massive amount of networking throughput that's needed to consume cloud services. So networking devices are going to have a strong market, a robust market over the next 5 to 10 years. And in fact, Ethernet switches are projected to grow at a 24% CAGR over the next 5 years. All right, the last section, security. So I don't need to tell you all how much opportunity there is in the security market, but it's always helpful to get a sense of some of the major trends in the numbers. About $103 billion spent in North America this year, 50 of which comes out of North America. I'm sorry, $103 billion globally, with about $50 billion spent in North America. Looking at end users, especially those larger than 500 employees, they're going to make up about 2/3 of that spend. And incidentally, SMBs are going to come in a little over $12 billion spent in North America this year. From the vertical standpoint, you can see some of the trends there. The fastest growth is state and local, telecom, and resource industries. The CAGRs for those are about 13% over the next 5 years. From the segment, when you slice security into various segments, your managed security service providers, they came in first in terms of the size of spend, but also the growth rate as organizations turn to MSSPs for things like advanced detection, threat intelligence, and consulting services, human expertise. Incidentally, network security, so your IDS, your IPS, and firewalls, they came in second both in the size of spend, but also growth rates as well. Now, fueling all of that growth is the fact that modernization, the things we talked about, AI, IoT, cloud, are changing not only the way things are being bought, but the way things are being applied. And that introduces vulnerabilities, but also opportunities for us. And what sets security apart is that while spending on those other technology categories is often driven by a need for cost savings and efficiency, for security, it's the threats that are out there, the ever-increasing threats. And I saw one statistic, cyber attacks alone will cost $6 trillion globally in economic damage by 2021. Pretty scary. All right, so that's what's happening across North America in terms of market forces and demand. Let's switch gears and talk about some of the ways that our team helps our partners and our manufacturers shorten your sales cycles. As I mentioned, Shalvi and I are going to tag team. I'm going to talk about our capabilities and our offerings, and then Shalvi's going to provide some real-life success stories and examples. For obvious reasons, we're going to mask the identities of the vendors and the resellers involved. Okay, so the way I framed our capabilities is by looking at it from the lens of a reseller, a manufacturer, and then there's going to be a category that's applicable to everyone. So here are some, but not all, certainly not all, of the kinds of challenges and business gaps that we address on a daily basis for our channel partners. If you want to take share of wallet analysis a step further, and we can do a deep dive analysis for you to see where you might be missing out on sales opportunities. So we can help you there. Oftentimes resellers come to us asking for help, asking for information on what technologies their end users are buying the most. And those usually help drive conversations around, okay, maybe we need to add a security or a virtualization practice, for instance. The idea being that this information, this analysis can give them a picture of their current state, their missed opportunities, and where they can grow. Also, sometimes we get asked for help because resellers want to compare themselves against their peers. They want to get a sense of what the competitive landscape looks like within the Arrow channel. Again, we're going to mask and group who those peers are, but we can show you areas where you may or may not be performing well, and the idea is to help you develop those business conversations to see if you want to evaluate different product sets or different markets. So with that said, those are use cases. I'm going to turn it over to Shalvi, who will go through a couple of real-life examples.
Thank you, Lloyd. All right, let's start with some examples around our missed opportunity and loyal end customer requests. Recently, 2 of our larger resellers reached out to us and asked for some intel on their loyal customers as well as missed opportunities. We assisted them by providing a listing of their most loyal customers. Now, these are customers whose entire spend through Arrow is with that reseller. This gives them a sense of where they're strong. More importantly, we provided these resellers with analysis on where they're losing, namely those end users where the vast majority of their spend is not going through them, while of course masking the identity of the other resellers. So for example, if one of the end customers where they were missing the most revenue out on is Bank of America, we highlighted that it was X million dollars, and we broke that missed revenue out into technology categories. The resellers thought this information was very valuable, and for one of them in particular, it looks like it will help them win 2 to 3 new lines in Q3. This type of analysis is not only helpful to our resellers, but is also helpful to our vendors. In fact, one of our vendors found this type of analysis extremely valuable and was able to use it in meetings with their resellers to help them understand where they were winning and where there was an opportunity for growth. It allowed them to jump to the action stage of the discussion versus spending time making assumptions about end user spend. Another example that is both reseller and vendor-centric speaks to some of the consulting type of support we provide to their planning efforts. This from resellers and vendors who reached out to us with a request for help in adding context to their transactional data. To this end, we showed them how their hardware, software, and services trends aligned with nationwide trends in those categories. Geos where they may have been underrepresented based on that state's overall market spend on IT. Market analysis on technology categories where they're strong and what success looks like in the future for vendors and their partners selling into that space. Oftentimes, as was the case here, the resellers and vendors were able to supplement our data with what they're seeing internally. They were also able to identify cross-sell opportunities and, as mentioned before, identify areas where they're not well represented. Ultimately, this analysis was shared across their sales teams, and they built a sales plan to introduce solutions and services that the customer is not using. And that started with the market intelligence team helping them convey the so what.
Thanks, Shelby. Okay, so those are some ways that we help our partners grow or help them figure out where to refocus. Here's a representative sample of some of the ways that we help our vendors. The pain points and the business challenges that we can address. For example, if you're looking to penetrate new markets, you can give us a list of your white space end users, and we can identify resellers who are already selling into those white space markets. And we can also take it a step further and identify if any complementary lines, so any of your alliance partners are already selling to those markets. Obviously, we ask for the permission from those other vendors, but we can also provide that information as well. And this helps in a couple of ways. One, it's an easy way to access new markets. Two, it's also a tool for recruiting resellers. And this is also a means by which we can measure our ROI. We'll go into our transactional data and track sales between that vendor we engaged with and what was previously a white space end user or a white space reseller. These are relationships that didn't exist before we provided them with the data and analysis needed to pick up a phone, set up a meeting, set up a demo, and then eventually secure a deal. Another way we help our vendors is by examining what your customers purchase in combination or in conjunction with your products. So for example, we can identify, and this, by the way, this can be within your own product portfolio or across multiple lines. We can identify the rate or the frequency by which customers who purchase product A also purchase product B, or identify customers who purchase product A but not yet B, and there's various other ways of slicing and dicing those relationships. The idea is to use this for cross-sell, upsell, or for multi-vendor solution plays. Oftentimes, we'll also get asked for help in better understanding a customer's a vendor's lapsed customers, or help in better anticipating expiring deals, so the team can put together sort of an easy-to-use Excel-based dashboard that can help them track these dormant opportunities or upcoming opportunities as well for some easy wins or to re-engage old customers. The idea of all of these tools is using market intelligence to get ahead of customer demand and to be more predictive.
One of our large security vendors engaged with us on several target account list requests. They sent us a list of various end-user accounts which were white space to them. We ran that list of end-user accounts against our transactional data to A, see if the end users showed up in our invoice transactions, and B, whether any of our channel partners had sold to them. Sure enough, many of those end-user accounts showed up in our transactional data. On average, we see a little over half of the white space accounts sent to us in our data. This information helped the security vendor to get meetings they previously could not get and assisted them in generating pipeline. Here is a recap of 4 of their recent meetings. One of their recent meetings with a large media company yielded a proof of concept, and they might have an opportunity in about 6 months with that customer. They met with another customer a few weeks ago. This company is in the cloud monitoring space. That led to an open opportunity that looks to be several $million. Another meeting, this time with a large, well-known volunteer organization, led to an on-site setup last week. Lastly, a large nonprofit educational organization led to a closed deal 2 weeks ago with a lot more to come from this account. There's more from this particular engagement, but in the interest of time, we just wanted to give you a sense of the kind of ROI we're seeing from these deliverables. In another example for market basket analysis, one of our vendors recently asked us to help them find cross-sell opportunities. The very first thing we did was run an analysis to identify product combinations that their end customers were buying the most. We did this to help them get more targeted in their messaging with their end customer. Following this analysis, we will be helping them identify end customers that don't have one or more of the product combinations. This will be huge for them as it will help them sell more products to the same end customer from their massive product portfolio. What is even more amazing is that this could result in an ongoing project that leverages their own existing end customers. Another layer to this analysis leverages Arrow's extensive line card to identify overlapping end customers between vendors within a certain time frame. Our analysis has helped vendors identify complementary lines and uncover net new end customers via solution plays. For tech refresh reports, one of our large security vendors reached out to us to help them identify their dormant customers. They provided us with the life cycle of their SKUs, and we used this information to put their customers in different tiers for re-engagement based on their last engagement with the vendor. This was very helpful for them as they were able to send our customized reports to their resellers and act on the results right away. We have not only helped in identification of dormant customers, but have also helped in identification of dormant resellers. We recently helped one of our vendors identify their dormant resellers and went one step further by getting them the contact information for those resellers. This is helping them recruit new resellers and bring back some of the business they lost.
Thanks, Shavi. All right, so we'll look at use cases and examples and deliverables that apply to everyone. Sometimes you're simply looking for a list of potential end customers based on a geo or vertical, or whether they have Intel data center blocks or Azure already installed. We can go out and look for end customers that fit those characteristics. We can also do a second level of matching and analysis to make sure that they're white space to you. We can also work with you to figure out and identify and look for intent to purchase. So just what is the end user profile that fits that perfect fit, that's a perfect fit for my solution. We can look at our own transactional data and also inputs and anecdotes from you and look for characteristics of that ideal customer, and then go out and look for white space customers who fit that profile. Or sometimes you just want a big picture view of the market, or a deeper look at emerging trends, or an examination of the competitive landscape that's out there. We also do market trends analysis. It's more qualitative. You sort of got a taste of that earlier. The purpose of this is figuring out the right approach to the right opportunities. The emphasis being on actionable intelligence, not just charts and graphs and quadrants, but making sure that it's actually prescriptive for you.
Our last example came earlier this summer when one of our vendors reached out to us to help them identify net new end customers for 6 digital campaigns that they're trying to run via Arrow. We helped them profile their ideal end customer by looking at their successful end customers and pulled some white space end customer lists for them. We built several profiles by dissecting their transactional data in different categories to identify common trends to ensure they stay targeted. This analysis helped our vendor decide what programs to build and or focus on for future quarters. Our vendors and partners really appreciate this analysis due to the high return on investment they see from their campaigns.
Yeah, so that in a nutshell are some of the ways that the market intelligence team can help you grow, help our partners and vendors grow. Again, using market intelligence to tell a story, to help you be predictive and get ahead of customer demand. Shavi and I will be hanging out during the remainder of the conference. You can also engage with your Arrow account manager to reach out to us. Happy to work with you. Thanks.
Thank you.